Brenda, looking at this $46 million revenue versus expenditures gap, what area of money was this coming from? Like, was it from overall previous budgets in previous years, or is it this current year? Help me understand where that deficit is coming from.
Well, I think it's no secret to the Milwaukee public that we've been in a fiscal challenge for many years here. And now we have 3 audits that have come back, and we are using those audits to give us a clear picture moving forward. And so we think that the biggest pieces are some spending in our transportation that just wasn't budgeted for accurately in terms of what were actual year-to-year expenses in the past several years. We also have nutrition expenses that are going over. This is mostly due to participation rates, which we think if we can get our participation rates up, then we'll have greater chance to reimburse those funds, and then our general fund won't have to cover the expense of those meals. So that's a pretty big piece of it. And then I think, generally our 3 audits showed that the central office is disproportionately staffed, a bit higher than typical urban districts and our neighboring districts. And we want to get those resources closer to our schools and in our classrooms and make sure we're managing our class size. But I can assure parents that there are going to be no cuts to our classroom and class sizes, because we believe our resources should go closest to our students.
So then getting back to where this $46 million is coming from, are you saying it's a collective of over previous years, and how far back did that overspending occur?
Yeah, it's been many, many years, and now we have the additional revenues the additional look in our audit that gives us the actual line-by-line items on where we can see our actuals and what we had projected in budget. And so now we can make those adjustments and make those reductions and create those efficiencies that we need to create.
So you're saying that the $46 million gap is not from just the 25-26 school year and overspending in that budget cycle?
So currently right now, the $46 million is what we know is real right now that we have to correct for this year.
Okay. So in order to correct for that, you said looking at transportation, increasing nutrition participation, and then looking at how the staffing
current
is, et cetera.
Vacancies that we need to deal with, that we have. We need to make sure that we are managing that. We won't touch the classes, as I said. We'll still protect our students with special education and the services that they get, or our students who are bilingual and the services that they get. But all other services we will be looking at in order for reductions and efficiencies within the organization, so that we can start addressing that $46 million gap, and also then address for it in the future years, which is what we were not able to do because we didn't have the correct information from all of our audits.
Understand it. So the $46 million gap, you're saying it doesn't have to be, guys, let me backtrack. What's the deadline for trying to at least start getting things righted financially for the district as it looks forward in the coming months?
So right now, there is immediate urgency to be able to address current spending so that we can match current revenues. That's the key. And so we want to make sure that we are being good stewards of the public's trust and making sure that we're making those adjustments right now. So there's no actual deadline. It's right now. And then get this done.
And then can some of this gap be deferred or spread out in order to lessen the financial hardship to account for the revenues versus expenditures?
Well, you have seen in the forecast from our Office of Accountability and Efficiency recommending $23 million this year, $23 million next. I am going to try to do everything we can to put our district on the path of a structurally balanced budget by the end of this year. What I'm not able to do, I will then bring into the FY27 school year. And so right now, all of my key leadership is looking at contracts that we can discontinue, vacancy positions that we do not need to fill. Any new positions will need to be approved and will offer new scrutiny toward. And so controlling for those pieces, so reductions, efficiencies, and ending of contracts where possible.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to add about what you know, the budget committee, the strategic committee is going to be looking at tonight, the presentation, and what will eventually be passed on to the full board for review?
Well, what we're looking at tonight is really the 5-year forecast, and there's been several years of forecasts that have projected deficits for Milwaukee Public Schools. Even with the generosity of the public, we have declining enrollments that also impact our budgets, and so obviously you have less students, you have less money coming in, and so we have to be mindful of that, and I think it's really important. And so as we shift our budget priorities, we need to make sure that those student services are not lessened because we want to grow enrollment. We want to assure our families that Milwaukee Public Schools is not going to be cutting things that are closest to students. We will retain our athletic programs and our arts and music programs because we promised that from the referendum and the voters, and so the promises that we have made are promises that we're going to keep to our children and families.
With that declining enrollment, what do you see as would looking at facilities and capital investments in those facilities be reviewed? Because that's where I think a large part, at least historically, there's been underfunding of capital improvements, and as we have seen with the lead issue as well.
Yeah.
You know, so is facilities and management also going to be looked at as in real property?
Well, I think the hard thing for the public to understand is the facility and construction budget is a completely different budget than the operational budget that we're talking about here. So those are two separate budgets with restricted funding.
Would that help?
It doesn't help with the operational side of it. However, you know, you'll hear often we should close schools, and closing schools will save money. It does save money in the long run and out years because we can take the deferred maintenance off of our bottom line for fixing those older schools. You know, the average age of our schools is 85 years in the district. Obviously, they need to be maintained. That is an expense, and it does cause an operational expense too with the building service workers, the maintenance workers who have to, the roofs that have to be replaced. All of that does cost the taxpayers money. So taking those off the rolls do help over time, but in the immediate, that's not like the immediate fix to this issue. The fix to this issue was getting the audits done so you know clearly where every dollar is. The second piece was being able to budget adequately and appropriately for any expenditures that we anticipate with proper projected enrollment and forecasts, and then be able to move forward with those plans in the FY27 year.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or maybe a question that I didn't ask,
No, I just think it's really important for families to know that we are taking this very seriously, that we have worked to right our finances, and now this is the last step that we're taking to actually set a budget that is responsible and good responsible stewards of the public's trust.
All right.